All right, so now our my quizzes page is also ready. So from student side, we have everything ready. Now, when we start the application for the first time, it directly goes to home page. That means pages and this home, where we have this dummy things. We don't have anything else on this page, but it directly goes to this page. So what we should do on this page, first thing, this is inside authorized. So if user is authorized, then only it will come to this page. So we are good here with this. Now what we'll do, all these things you see, page title, section content, then h1, then authorizing view, authorizing, authorized. We did this just when we were implementing the authorization in this Blazor application. So we did this just for testing and to checking if things are working. But now what we'll do here, we will remove everything from here. But we'll have this attribute authorized, and then we are going to have this authorized view. Inside this, when we have authorized, inside this authorized, so this is kind of dynamic. Whenever user is authorized, then it will come to this authorized. So from here, we want user to redirect to home page. So we'll say student or admin home page. We need this. So for this, what we can do, if we want to run something inside this authorized, we need to create a component, and we will not have any HTML template in that component. We will just have one initialized method, and in there we can redirect to anywhere. Okay, so inside this authorized, for this authorized, what we can do, inside this pages only, or maybe in shared components, here let's say redirect to home component. So and then we'll say redirect to home.tracer. Okay, here we don't need any template, any HTML, but we'll have this code. Inside this we are going to have override, and again properties, build action none. It should have been content. Save it. Let's see if intelligence work. It is again not working, so let's work without intelligence. So protected override void on initialized, and here we'll say navigation manager. We need to inject this navigation manager. Navigation manager dot navigate to. Now where we want to navigate, for this we can have dynamic logic here, or we can get it from the caller itself. So let's get it from caller. So we'll have a property here, public string redirect URL, or maybe let's just have URL. We'll have get and set. We will define it as parameter and editor required, because this is required for this component. And then we'll use this URL here to navigate to this URL, and we'll say replace true. We don't want it to come back to the page from where we are calling it. All right, so redirect to home, this is the name. Now we'll go back to home page. Here we'll simply call that redirect to home. We'll provide URL that is going to be student/home. Save everything. Let's start, and we'll see it should go to the student home page. We'll make it dynamic on the basis of user and the admin. You see, it redirected to home, student/home. If I go back to slash, it will load and redirect to student home. Now it will always redirect to student home, but it should be dynamic. What I mean by dynamic is, if this is student role, then it should do this. If it is not student role, if this is admin role, it should go to some admin page. So initially, the first thing we'll do inside this admin, we don't have any home page, right? So let's quickly create a student admin home page. The way we have student home, same way we'll have admin home. Okay, let me try one more thing. Maybe when I'm creating the treasure page using this add new item like this, then it has that problem. Maybe if we do from here, it will be able to figure out admin home dot treasure. Here if we see properties content, maybe this is the problem. So for razor pages, I should use this one. Alright. So for this, we'll have the page slash admin slash home. Okay. And here we'll see what we can do. We have that section content. So here we'll say just home, nothing else. Save it, save everything. And this admin home, for this we already have authorized, right? Yes. Cool. Now on home page, we want that to be dynamic. So inside this authorized, we can again have authorized views. So we'll say authorized view with roles, and we are going to have name of user role. What happened? User role dot, if this is student, then use this redirect to home with the student home. And here we'll simply provide context equals student context. Then let me copy this thing, paste it again. This time we'll say admin. We'll change it to admin context, and we'll change this URL to admin. Save everything. Let's start. So for student, it should open student slash home. For admin, it should open admin slash home. So we are good with this. Let's log out. Log in with the admin account. Log in. And we are here with slash admin slash home. You see? Home not authorized because, oh, this home points to student slash home. It should not do this as well. This should be again dynamic. So we must have added this in our nav menu. Let's quickly go to our nav menu. Layout, nav menu. Here, where is the home? Yes, we have this home directly here, right? We don't need this home directly here. So we'll cut this div from here. Then inside this admin authorized view, we are going to come here and we'll say admin slash home. Then we have the student context. So here we are going to have this home with student home. Save everything. Let's start the application again. Now these links should also be correct. Figure admin home, manage categories, and admin home. Log out, student account, login, home is student home, my quizzes, and back to home. So we are good. Okay, so on student side, we are good with home, my quizzes, and starting a quiz. And on admin side, I guess we have worked on all these: manage categories, manage students, manage quizzes, add quiz. And then on home, what should we have on this home screen? So you're good to have anything on the screen. For me, what I will do, maybe I'll have just quick stats that number of categories, number of students, number of quizzes, something like this. Okay. So let's quickly work on this. Then we'll be done with this admin side as well. Or we'll be done with web completely, right? This is the only missing piece. Let's close all tabs. Then we'll go to API. services, we have this user service or maybe quiz service or student quiz service. Where should we have that? Where should we have that? Let's maybe create a new class and we'll say admin service. I don't know what should we name it, but let's have admin service. And here we'll say, what do we have in user service? Get users async and toggle user approved status, right? So maybe whatever we have in this user service, we can move this to admin service because this belongs to admin only. We are displaying the list of users to admin and we are having this toggle user approved status from admin only. Yes, let's move these two methods to admin service. Here we'll say quiz context and now we are good. Now we don't need that user service. We can go ahead and delete this user service file. Then we'll go to program.cs and in here we have user service. We'll replace this with admin service and then we should go to our endpoints, user endpoints. We should rename this to admin endpoints. And then map user endpoints, we'll rename this as well. We'll say map admin endpoints and this user service we'll say admin service. And same thing should be in the previous one here. Cool. So save everything and now it should work same. Now we'll go to admin service and here we can have, let's say home data or dashboard data. We can call it dashboard data. So for that we need number of students, number of categories and number of quizzes. Then we can also have that number of approved students. Total students are these and approved are these. And then same way we can have for quizzes. So we'll have all quizzes and active quizzes, something like this. So for this, let's first create a DTO. So we'll go to shared DTOs and we are going to create a class. We'll say home data DTO, or let's say admin home data DTO .cs. Okay, we can create it as a record. So public record admin home data DTO. Here we'll have int total categories. Then we have int total students. Then we'll say int approved students. Then we'll say int quizzes or total quizzes. Then we are going to have int active quizzes. Admin home data DTO. Let's go to admin service. Create a method here, public async task admin home data DTO get home data async, and we don't need any parameter here. All right, now here we need all those things. So whatever we have in this admin home data DTO, we'll have these things. First we need total categories, so we can say context dot categories dot count async total categories. We can say await and then do this. Then let me copy it a couple of times. Then we have total students. So total students, this we can get from context.users.where u.role is equals name of user role dot student. Okay, then we are saying total approved students, so we'll say approved students. Now we'll have the same where with one more flag. So where user is this and u dot is approved is true. What happened? U dot name of this I'm applying and something is not right. Okay, let's maybe come here and u dot intelligence again. Let's remove this. U dot is approved and this. Oh, I'm adding context where directly on context. It should be context dot users dot where this thing, and then we'll say dot count async. After that we have total quizzes. So we'll say context dot quizzes dot count async, and then we'll have active quizzes context dot quizzes dot where q dot is active and then count async. And then we'll simply return new admin home data DTU, and we'll have all these total categories, total students, approved students, total quizzes, and active quizzes. Now this is fine, but there is one problem here. Output wise it is fine, but performance wise it is very bad. The thing here is we are loading these things 1 2 3 4 5 set of data, and this data, all these things are independent of each other. Total categories count does not depend on total students count. Same way, all these are not dependent or related to each other directly. And what we are doing when we say await and then count async, this line will make one database strip, then it will make again one, this. So we are going to have 2 3 4 5 database strips, that too sequentially. It will first send this database strip, then it will get the data, then it will do for this, it will do for this. Now if we want to reduce the number of trips to the database for this kind of stuff, it is a very good candidate for a stored procedure. So you can create a stored procedure for this, which will return you all these counts. Now if you don't want to go to SQL Server directly like this, creating stored procedure and all this, then here also at least what you can do, instead of loading these sequentially, you can load these parallelly. Now how would we do this? So for this what we can do, we can simply, we will not await these directly. Remove this, we can remove this, we can remove this, we can remove this awaits. We can, now these are returning tasks, so task of int, we can maybe have these as task, then total student task and approved students task, total quizzes task, and then active quizzes task. Now, all these are parallel calls. Then we can simply have the things which we are doing, let's say total categories, we'll say await, and total categories task. Now we are awaiting it, so for this time maybe we will have result from all these directly, or because all these are returning the same type, task of integer, we can use task.when all as well here. Okay, if you don't want to do this, we can have task.when all, that is also a case. Okay, so I'm just uh, telling you what are all options you have. But right now, what would happen? It will throw exception. What exception? We have this context, we have this quiz context. So it will, on this first line, it will go ahead and start this query from on the database. Now it will directly go back to the second line. It will again try to use this context, the same context. But how this DB context is designed, it can have only one operation at a time. So we are going to have that exception, something like that DB context is maybe uh, is already doing some operation, something like that. I don't remember the exact thing, but we can't have multiple operations on a single DB context at a given point of time. So this thing will not work directly. We need to have some different approach so that all these contexts should be new context is, so different context is. So for this, what we can do, instead of directly injecting this quiz context, what we can have, we have two approach. Either we can register DB context factory, and then we can create the factory from the here. We will not change all other places. And then we have one more approach. If we want to, maybe we can go to program.cs, and here we can register a delegate, a func over this at DB context. So what we can do, builder.services.add, it could be anything at scope, transient, singleton, does not matter, because the resolve, the fetch of this DB context, it will be on demand. So it could be anything, scope, transient, singleton, anything actually. So let's have singleton. Here we'll register func of quiz context. Func delegate, which will return one parameter. There is no input parameter to this, but it will return quiz context. Okay, so we are registering this, and here we'll use this func of iService provider, uh, this overload method. So here we'll say sp, which is service provider. From here we'll get this thing. This is the func delegate which we are creating here. Then we'll say sp dot get required service of quiz context. Now here what we said, that whenever we will inject this func of quiz context and we can try to get this, just come here and execute this thing, and it will come here, it will try to execute this. And here we are saying that from service provider, give me this required service, and now this is this one. Okay, so save it, and let's inject this func of quiz context in here. So we can maybe inject both of these. We don't want to change anything in these things, previous ones, or maybe we can simply get rid of this and we'll just have this only, func of quiz context. We'll say context factory. This is context factory actually. We will not have context directly here. What we can do, we can have a private property here, private quiz context, and it will be underscore context factory. We are going to call this underscore context factory, which will execute that delegate which we have defined here. It will get the new instance of this. So now we can use this context instead of underscore context. Same thing in this method, we'll say context, and we are good. Now we have this total categories. Same way, let's copy, paste it. The next thing, we want to have total students, approved students, total quizzes, and then active quizzes. And then this awaitable, we'll have total student tasks, approved student task, then we have total quiz task and active quizzes task. Now if we run it, let's see. I want to show you how it is working or it is not working. Will it work or it will again throw some exception? Let's check. So for this admin service, first thing we need to have one endpoint. So we'll go to admin endpoints. Here we'll have app.mapget. Okay, and on this mapget we'll define API slash admin slash home data. Sync, it will not have any parameter. So here we'll just inject admin service, and from here we'll simply return results.ok await service.get home data async. Now we need this just for admin role, so we can simply have this require authorization with this require role user. We can have it here, save it, and now we should be good. Cool. Let's, oh, before starting, let's copy this URL, and we already have that method call. Let's go to the UI API, and we have this iUser API. We'll rename this, we'll call it iAdmin API, and then we are going to have that method here to get the home data, and we'll define get here with the URL this. Save everything, and now we should be good. We can inject iAdmin API and get this home data async on our admin home page. So let's go to pages, admin home. Let's inject iAppState, and let's inject iAdmin API. Okay, and here we'll say private admin home data DTU underscore data equals, let's have default value. Then in override on initialized async method, we'll say appstate.showLoader fetching data. Then we'll say underscore data DTO. We don't need data DTO, just have data. Underscore data equals, we'll say await admin API dot get home data async, and then we'll say appstate hide loader. Okay, and because this is default, so let's do this. Let's not have this, just have default, which will be by default. So let's have this question mark, and here we'll simply say if the underscore data is not equals null, then only render this thing. What thing? Just div class maybe row. Inside this we are going to have div class call sm3. Inside this we are going to have a div class, let's say bg white. Inside this we are going to have h4 class fw bold, and here we can have this some text here. The text is going to be, what do we have in admin home data? First we have categories, so here we'll say categories, or maybe let's do this, get this bg white and add it on call sm3 directly. Then we have this h4 categories, then we are going to have one p, and here we'll, or maybe let's say h3 and we'll say data dot total categories. Then let me copy this thing paste it. Then second thing is on this home data DTO, we have total students and approved students, right? So the heading will say students. After the search for, let's have one HR tag, one HR tag, and then we are going to have two things here. First is uh, total students. So we'll say total is this, and then we'll copy it, and here we'll say approved students, and here we'll say approved. Then let's copy this thing, paste it two times. One is going to be, no, not two times, so one is fine. So student, instead of student, this time we'll say quizzes, and here we'll say total quizzes and active quizzes. Okay, and instead of call sm3, let's make it call sm4 and call sm4. Save everything. Let's start. Let's see if everything is working or we are getting some error or exception. API, UI, and we have some error. You see, if we open this, if we go to console, it says response status code does not indicate 500. And if we open up the console, here we have this error. That error says an unhandled exception occurred, and then system.invalid operation exception cannot resolve scoped service from root provider. That service is quiz context. Now, because by default the DB context, these are registered as scoped service. We can modify this default behavior. We can go here and just set the service lifetime. But scoped is fine. So it is not able to get it, but we are trying to access this thing inside add singleton when we are trying to create it. What is happening here? This will directly try to fetch this quiz context without any scope. So we need some scope here. So we cannot directly have this. We need to create a scope and then resolve this. So here we can say var scope equals, we can say sp dot create scope, and then we can return, scope dot service provider. From here, get required service quiz context and then return this. Save it. Let's see if it works. So here using this, I'm just trying to show you how this thing is working. We will use DB context factory. That is the best thing. We don't need to manage so many things on our own. So here you see we have data for one student that is approved, one total quiz that is active, 4 categories. If we quickly go to manage quizzes, edit this, and let's say disable this, save this quiz, go back to home. Now we have one total quiz and 0 active. Same thing, let's go to manage students, set it to false, and it again didn't work. This time it worked. Okay, home, manage students, this is something is not right. We'll see this. Home. Oh, that flag, that is not working. Manage students, it is getting back to be enabled only. So if we do this network, let's say this thing, toggle status, API users to, and toggle status. If we check the API, maybe there is something wrong with the API. Admin home, not iAdmin API, admin endpoints, admin service, toggle user status. We are here, where setting is approved to not is approved. Program.cs, not program.cs. Let's check our quiz context. Quiz context, where is that in data? Quiz context. I just want to see if we are setting no tracking. That we are not setting, right? Still, somehow it is not able to do this. Let's put a breakpoint here and we'll see if it is coming here, if we are getting the correct thing or not. So let's restart maybe and then we'll see. Manage students. Do this. We are here. User ID 2. DB user. We are able to get it. This time DB user is approved is true. Is approved is false now. Is approved is false now. Maybe let's continue. And if I do this again, I came here again, user ID is 2. This time if I check, is approved is still true. It didn't update. So it should have been updated. We should not be using this. This should not be required, but somehow, let's see. If this does not work or as tracking also does not work, we have, let's say, explicit approach. What we can do on this context. Oh, I'm sorry. There is a problem. It was working before, right? If you remember, there is a problem, and the problem is we are having this context, context everywhere. So whenever we call this object context, it creates a new instance of quiz context. Now in here, what is happening when we call this context here? It came here, it started the tracking on this context, which is a separate variable. Then we have this context, and this is a separate variable. So the save changes async is working on a different instance of quiz, this quiz context, and this fetching of DB user, this happened on a different separate DB context. So these are two different DB contexts because we are doing this thing here. So we have a couple of different approaches for this. Maybe we can simply have directly only one instance of this. In the first also, let's see if we are having only one context. Yeah, so for first one we are okay, but here we are not okay. So we'll say var context equals, or maybe using var context equals this context. Then we'll use this context. Save everything. And now we should be good. Start. Manage students. Do this and it worked this time. If we go back to home, we can see 0 approved. So it worked. Alright, so this was the thing here. So I think it's good if this error came here. So you guys might have faced the same issue if you do this thing. Now, while this is good, it is its own pros and cons, but if this is direct DB context, so this framework provides us with a DB context factory. So it's better to use that. What we can do, we'll simply say builder.services dot add DB context factory. We can do this. Here we can simply define quiz context, and here also we can do the same thing. Now I am using this same thing here. You can maybe combine these. Now we don't need this func. We can just remove this. You can combine this, and if you don't want to directly combine this, you can at least have these things out. So maybe this connection string, you can have this as a parameter outside of this, so we don't need this here. Now on this, for this option SQL server, you can also get it outside, but we are good with this simple setup. So for this particular thing, admin service, instead of this func context factory, what we'll do, we'll inject idb context factory of type quiz context, and we'll call it context factory only. Let's change this type here. Cool. And now instead of getting it like this, let's have it here. So here we can simply say context factory. Just call this context factory directly here. Now on this context factory, we actually have create db context method. So we'll call this. Alright. Now here when we have this thing, so here we can say context factory underscore context factory dot create db context. Now we will be good with this setup. Save everything and let's start the application again. No, we have some error, context does not exist, and we are still using this context here. So here also we'll say using var context equals underscore context factory dot create db context, and let's use this context here. Save, start. Some error, some services are not able to be constructed. Lifetime singleton. What is the singleton lifetime? Oh, what did I do? Let's start. Okay, let's read this error actually. Some services are not able to be constructed, and service type is idb context factory. Lifetime singleton. Okay, yes. And then it cannot consume scoped service db context options. Okay. All right. So here what is happening? All right. So as I mentioned, this db context factory, it kind of uses a connection pooling. And in this, what happens if we go to quiz context, this db context options, how this works, entity framework, this EF core, try to reuse this db context options whenever possible. So what happens if we see with this add db context, we have an overload method which takes context lifetime and options lifetime. So this context lifetime is for this quiz context directly, and then this options lifetime is for the db context options for this. So by default, if we check, we are registering at db context, and here we have this service lifetime dot scoped and service lifetime dot scoped. That means for options, the default lifetime is scoped. And when we came here in add db context factory, it also tried to register this quiz context. So it basically registers a db context factory from where we can get quiz context, but it also registers the same db context options, but in singleton manner. So, but using try add method. That means if that is already registered, then it will reuse that. So here what is happening? First we have this add db context in here without providing any lifetime. By default is scoped. So it is saying that register quiz context as scoped service, and register DB context options of quiz context as scoped service. But when we came here with add DB context factory, here we are going to say that try to register it, but before that check if it is already registered. So in here it is already registered as scoped, and with add DB context it is actually singleton. So we cannot inject scoped service in singleton service because scoped are bound to some scope, but singleton are not bound to any scope. These are kind of global. Okay, so scope needs to be start and end in between somewhere, but singleton just starts and it never ends unless our application is shut down. Okay, so scoped service cannot be injected in singleton, so that is the problem. Now, how to fix it? One thing is we can move this add DB context after DB context factory. Now what will happen with this add DB context factory? It will register DB context options as singleton. Then when this add DB context call comes in, it will try to add the registration for DB context factory, but because it is already registered, it will not register it as scoped. And with this quiz context, it will be injected as a singleton service, and that is possible. We can inject singleton in transient scoped both, but we cannot inject scoped in singleton. Alright, so this is the case which should fix it. Let's try if it is fixing the error. Then I'll show you one more approach by which you can fix it. So it came here without any error. API is here and UI is here. Let's close this. So this is fine. This will work. There is no problem with this, but there is only a problem of this structure. The way you usually know or everyone knows that when we are registering the services, the order should not matter. So before this builder.build, all these things can be in any order. But here we are enforcing the order that DB context factory should be before DB context. If someone maybe messes up with this order, it will stop, application will stop working. So the another approach could be, maybe let's move it back here like this only. Another approach could be here we have option to define lifetime of context or options. So we can actually define option lifetime as singleton in the first one. Or you can do the same thing with add DB context factory and you can define the options lifetime. Options lifetime is this. Or just default lifetime or maybe internally. So I'm not in favor of this thing that I'm not going to make it scoped. Rather, I'll have it in here. But you can do that as well. You just need to find out where is that correct thing. But here, if we are saying singleton with add DB context, now it will register options as singleton. It will use that here. And then we are in add DB context factory. It will check if it is already registered. Yes, it is registered. Then it will be good. Let's try to start it again. And it should work. API is here and UI is here. That means everything is working fine. Cool. Now what we'll do, we'll simply go to the UI and just try to modify this UI a bit. So on this call smbg white, we'll have p3, p3, save. And because we are in this call sm4 bp3, we are not seeing that some margin right in between these. We have added bg white directly on these. If I start it, You see there is this spacing, but there is no space in between here. That's because we have directly added our bg white on our call sm4. But we should maybe create a internal container, then we'll add this thing there. Okay, so for that, all right, let's go and try to create it. We'll have this thing here, so we'll say div class maybe box and have this bg white on this box, and then p3 on this box only. Okay, now for the second case also, let's have div class this, and let's copy this thing, go to the last one as well, and here add this inside this, same thing here, and then remove this bg white and p3 from call sm4. Save, hot reload, and let's see if it comes. Yes, it came here and we can see this. All right, now we have this small box, but these are bigger boxes. That's because it has only one value, one row. So here if you see, call sm4 has full height, but this box does not have that full height. So on this we can maybe add one more class. We'll say h100, which will be height 100%. So it is same. All right, cool. Let's add this h100 as well, and then we'll be good with this section as well. So h100 on first one, save it, and with this our admin is ready with all the functionalities: home, managing categories, managing students, managing quizzes, with all these filters, and then log out, adding a new quiz. The same goes with the your account is not approved. Good, this thing is also working. Let's log in with admin, manage students. Let's make this approved. Log out, and again log in with the user's test account, and we can see there is no active quizzes right now because we have disabled that. But if you go to my quizzes, we should see all the available quizzes, whatever quiz we have already given. Cool, so with this our web version is ready. All right, now what next? Next we'll work on our mobile application using Blazor hybrid. So this blazingquiz.mobile, this is the next thing we will work on, and this will be just for student. So admin panel will keep it in web version only, but the student panel that could be in mobile as well. So we'll do this. That means we'll have register, login, then my quizzes, and then we'll have that start quiz functionality and that complete UI here. All right,